welcome to the Best Of. On the Best Of, we focus on the best in the areas of business, entertainment, sports, and the community. And we have a very special guest with us today. He's the director of the Memphis Police Department. He's none other than Police Director Tony Armstrong. Director Armstrong, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, it's certainly a pleasure, and we're really excited, and we've been looking forward to having you as a guest on the show. So we appreciate you investing your time in us and in the audience, because we know that you're going to really share some seeds of wisdom.
Well, I hope so.
I'm sure that you will. So with that, if you could just share some things with us, as we've said that this is the Memphis Police Department, and share some things with us about you.
Well, I think most of it's probably been put out there already, but you know I was born and raised here in the city, graduated high school here, left at the age of 17, joined the military, made a deal with my mom that if she allowed me to go into the military, I'd come home and complete my education.
Great.
I kept my word, came back home. I have graduated from Christian Brothers University. I have a degree in psychology. I've been with the Memphis Police Department now 24 years. I had a 5-year plan, wanted to come in and get my degree, and I wanted to go and do some other things, but you know, you go to bed one night and you seem like you wake up and 5 years have gone by. You go to bed another night and you wake up and seem like 10 more years have gone by. So 24 years later, I'm still here.
Wow. 24 years. So that means you went to kindergarten and then you just came out, because exactly. I tell you what, you're doing something right, because it certainly doesn't, you certainly don't give the impression that you've been there. So there's a lot of wisdom in that youthful face that you have there, huh?
You know, if you look at some pictures from me just a few years ago, I've aged quite a bit. I guess you can say I have an old soul. You know, all of my friends, all of my inner circle have always been people that have been older than I was. So I've always been well grounded. You know, at the end of the day, I've always considered myself to be just a regular guy.
Yeah,
you know?
Wow. And that really is why my wife and I wanted you to be a guest on the Best Of, because in our mind and in our household, you really do represent the best of. So once again, we can't thank you enough. And I want to step back when you said something about cutting a deal. That reminds me of someone that I know very well, and that's me. I ended up cutting a deal with my mom as well, and fortunately, you fulfilled it. I'd never planned to fulfill mine, but my mother knew me better than I knew myself. So fortunately, and thank God for our moms, because without them, we wouldn't have these degrees, and we wouldn't be where we are today. So
no, education was big in my house, and I actually graduated high school a year early.
Oh, wow.
And when I graduated a year early, my mom said, okay, so what are you going to do? And I always had this thing about wanting to go into the military. And she wanted me to complete my education at the time, and to be honest with you, I wasn't ready. You know, I knew the timing was not right for me to, you know, go into college, and I certainly didn't want to waste money and waste time, because I was so passionate about going into the military. Wow. And we basically sat down and we made a deal. My recruiter came and picked me up from school one day, and I said, you know, if we're going to talk to my mom, this is the best time to do it. So he took me home, and when we walked in the door and she saw the both of us there, she was basically like, you're serious about this? And I said, I'm really, really serious about this. So I graduated in May of that year. In September that year, I was going into boot camp.
Wow. Well, I'm pretty sure I have somewhat of an answer to this question, but I would really like to ask you this. Now, you've talked about mom inspiring you. Who else served as an inspiration in your life?
Grandma. Yeah. You know, my grandmother was very, very, you know, the thing about my grandmother, she had a lot of grandkids, but if you asked any of us who was the favorite grandkid, you probably get a pretty good argument as to, you know, it was me, no, it was me, or whatever. Yeah. Because she had that ability to just make everybody feel like they were just so special. I spent summers with my grandmother, weekends. You know, when I got in trouble at home, I'd sneak in the back room and I'd call and say, you know, we called my grandmother Madia. I said, Madia, call my mom and ask her, can I come over this weekend? So, you know, my grandmother was just grandmothers are very, very special. And I really can see that now that I have my own child. You know, the relationship that, even though she's 2, the relationship that she has already with her grandparents. You know, with them, certainly she can do no wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and you look at your mom now and the things that she allows my daughter to get away with, and you're going, I don't even recognize you anymore. You know, certainly when I was coming up, I would not been able to get away with the things that my daughter can now.
Wow. Well, thank God for grandmothers, and as we speak, we just lost my grandmother
I hate to hear that.
less than 48 hours ago, but you know what? She lives within me, and just like your grandmother and your mom live within you, so.
Grandparents are special.
Absolutely.
Grandparents are, I have a support system that is just unbelievable.
That is
you know, my wife's parents, with my mom, you know, my mom is retired. My wife's parents own a daycare.
Oh, great.
This is the only grandchild.
Oh, boy.
So we have a support system that is just unbelievable.
She rules the family.
She does.
No doubt about that. Now let's talk about who influenced you to make this leap into law enforcement.
You know, I can't say there was one individual. Actually, when I was in the military, I was stationed in Korea, and I had a commanding officer there. There had been a police officer in Dallas and Houston. I can't remember the exact city, but I know it was Texas. And we used to sit up and he used to just tell me stories, and it was just so fascinating to me. And actually, when I got back home, you know, I talked to my mom about it for a while, and she was like, you know, I just don't think that that's the smartest thing for you to do, especially with you being the only child. You just got out of the military, and being a law enforcement officer is so dangerous. So she actually talked me out of it.
Wow.
You know, and she went on vacation, and while she was on vacation, I applied.
You're a brave soul.
So when she got back from vacation, I told her about it, and I told her I had tested and everything, and I felt that I did pretty well. And I got the phone call.
Wow.
You know, so, you know, it's one of those things that once you get bit by the bug, you know, it just kind of consumes you. And it's a calling. I talk to ministers all over the city all the time, and we have a joke that we say to each other. I said, I know you got called to the ministry, but I got a similar calling to law enforcement, because if you're going to be effective as a law enforcement official, it is a calling.
Absolutely.
It's not the financial package that you get. It's a thankless job. You know, you take a beating through the media. When you get called to a scene, more than likely, people have lost control. You know, you don't get calls and say, hey, I just had a baby today, or hey, we're celebrating and we wanted you to be a part of it. You have to go and make a lot of tough decisions, and a lot of times those decisions don't necessarily sit well with a lot of people. You know.
Well, one of the reasons we really wanted to have you on the show, so that our viewing audience would get an opportunity to see the many good things that you do and that you had, because my very first meeting with you was actually at a community development center.
It was.
Headed by Cornelius Sanders, the North Memphis Community Development Corporation, and you were doing good then. And we have seen each other around Memphis in a number of different areas. We have someone in common in Dr. Rita Dorsey Flowers, who was, quite honestly, she trusted me enough to even serve as her guest host for her show. So we realized that she's even in heaven looking down on us, and she's saying, you know, those fellas are not doing too bad.
That's
so,
right.
Yeah, to the Dorsey Flowers family, we want to thank you for your contribution, because we are the results of that in part. So
You're exactly right.
As police director, what message or what would you like to share with the citizens of Memphis?
You know, one is just to repeat something that I just said. This is a tough job. It's not easy. You have to understand that you rely on us to come into the various communities throughout this city, and in some instances maintain order, in some instances restore order. We have to make life or death decisions in a second's notice. Within the last 2 years, you know, I celebrate my second year as director next month, on the 15th of next month. We've had 11 officers shot in the line of duty. We've lost 2 officers. So while, you know, the media may portray us in one way with a lot of negative things, and certainly a lot of it is deserving. We've had officers to make and certainly as the director that I wish they had not made. But at the end of the day, that represents 1% of our department. You have so many men and women that get up every single morning and literally come and put it on the line. You know, and I was talking to one of my chiefs the other day, and he said, you know, it's one thing that people don't get about being a police officer. We get up every single morning, and our families have to see us go to work. They see us put a gun on and our equipment on when we leave the house and they have to pray that, Lord, please help, you know, protect my loved one, that my mom, my dad, my son, my daughter don't have to take someone's life today. And most importantly about that, they see us put on a protective vest. You refer to it as a bulletproof vest. And they have to pray that, God, I hope, you know, my mom, dad, brother, sister, loved one got shot today. So imagine an occupation where you have to get up every single morning and you have to protect put on equipment to protect yourself and get your mind in that mode, that this could be a day where I have to, where I'm put in a position where I have to take someone's life, or more importantly, I could lose my life. And I don't know very many people that would go to work knowing that every single day. Yeah. Now, are we perfect? No, we're not perfect. You know, I have 3,000 employees. Yeah. But you talk to any Fortune 500 company and you tell them that only 1% of your company is going to be adversely affected by bad decisions. And I think most of them will say that's a pretty doggone good ratio.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is true. And you've said some things that hopefully the people in the viewing audience will really listen to, because both my wife and I have been leaders in corporate America. I can assure you that our attrition rate was pretty high, and in some instances our retention rate wasn't quite where we wanted it to be, simply because of those people that we trained and we talked to and we gave them our business and personal philosophy, and they individually decided to do something different. So I think it's important for people in the audience to realize that some of the actions that are taking place are not the actions that you have shared with your force. So I think that's important to understand. As parents, there's some parents that are out there.
Yeah.
You may have given and taught your children everything the right way, and what do? So I said those things to really put things into perspective, because I think it's important to understand that if you are even at church worshiping or something like that, you could be doing all the right things with your family members, and one of the officers could be doing something completely different. So I think it's important. And with having said that, as a citizen of our fair city, what message would you like to share with the citizens of Memphis?
I think you have to have realistic expectations of your police department, one, and two, ownership of your community. You know, so often you rely on so many